So the next on the program is the speech from Mr. Raymond Amanfo, Head, Other Financial Institutions Supervision Department. So with a round of applause, let's welcome Mr. Raymond Amanfo.
The former Deputy Governor and distinguished gentlemen on the high table, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. It's a pleasure to be here with you this morning to be part of this seminar organized by GCS Investments in collaboration with the Wabeja Rural Bank to look at this very important topic, enhancing the value of rural bank shares as an attractive asset class. This seminar aims, among others, at enhancing the value and the participation of rural banks and I'm particularly delighted that the organizers have given us the option to talk about a few things. Normally in meetings like this, we don't want to talk about regulation. People are not too excited when you mount the platform and talk about do this, don't do that. So I won't do that this month. I think on the sideline we can talk about issues later. Mr. Chairman, following the number of structural rigidities in the provision of normal banking services in the rural areas of Ghana in the 1970s, the Bank of Ghana promoted the concept of rural banking as a vehicle to provide financial intermediation services to our rural communities. And let me say that one of the great pioneers of that project is Mr. Seydou Manteh, who actually happened to be my first boss. So we've gone through the mill with rural banks since 1985 when we joined the bank. Through the tireless efforts of the various stakeholders, the first rural bank was established in 1976 at Newbrook in the central region. And since 76, the concept has grown and has gone through some challenges though. However, rural banks continue to make impact that justifies the efforts of the founding fathers of this noble objective. In spite of the teething problems that saw 23 of these institutions being liquidated in the early 1990s, the number of rural banks continue to grow, and as of today, we have 139 rural and community banks across the country. Mr. Chairman, through various donor-sponsored projects such as the EEC Input Support, Rural and Financial Services Program, Danida, IFA, and recently RAFID, the rural and community banks have been equipped by way of human resource capacity building, technological advancement, and provision of on-lending financing arrangements. The confidence of the international community has also resulted in the formation of ARB Apex Bank Limited, a quasi-central bank for RCBs, which among other things have been providing training, IT infrastructure, clearing, and specie services to the rural and community banks. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, as at March 2014, the total assets of the rural banks amounted to 1,864 million Ghana cedis, and this accounted for 3.86% of the total assets of the entire banking industry. However, this compared with a share of 4.71 as at March 2013. That means that the share of the rural banks are dwindling, and we need to make more effort to catch up. Mr. Chairman, out of the rural banking total assets of 1,864 million, 26 of them accounted for approximately 51%. And of the 26, 12 come from the Ashanti region. That means that the concentration is very high. And as we sit here, we must all find ways of trying to see how we can spread this. Mr. Chairman, the above indicates that rural and community banks are losing grounds in the total assets of the industry and must re-strategize to achieve the projected target of 10% of the share of the industry by the year 2017. As of March 2014, the deposits and credits of rural and community banks amounted to approximately 1.65 million and 716 million respectively, recording a year-on-year growth of 13.95% and 12.66% respectively. Similarly, the top 26 contributed 52% of the total deposits and 51% of the total credits. It means that out of 139, only 26 are controlling about half of the industry. This, Mr. Chairman, poses a concentration risk, and it is incumbent on all of us here to do more to reduce such concentration. Mr. Chairman, the prospects of rural banks are very bright, but very challenging in the current competitive environment. Therefore, rural banks should leverage on their uniqueness to grow their business and make greater impact in their areas of operations. In a forum like this, where directors and shareholders should not be oblivious of their immense role in championing the growth of their investment. Mr. Chairman, permit me to say that the return on equity of the rural banks are very competitive compared with even some listed companies. Currently, many institutions, both local and foreign, are knocking at the doors of rural and community banks to take advantage of this immense potential. Shareholders, especially the locals, should take this opportunity to increase their stake and also show more interest in the affairs of rural and community banks through their participation at AGMs and fora such as this. The recent increase in capital of rural banks to 300,000 should not be your target. Strive towards a higher level of capital, as banks with greater capital have the ability to withstand shocks. Also, rural banks must provide their customers with excellent services, for in a competitive environment like this, the customer is the king. Be innovative, proactive, and competitive. Mr. Chairman, credit risk continues to pose the greatest challenge to RCBs. Rural and community banks need to retrain their credit staff, revise credit underwriting standards, and improve collection strategies. The current competitive microfinance space calls for rural banks to be mindful of liquidity risk. RCBs must therefore have liquidity contingency plans to deal with short-term liquidity challenges. Finally, rural banks must speed up with their technological risk assessment associated with their software and hardware systems. Must put in place dual controls, effective password management, control access to data as well as data transmission, which must be closely monitored. Mr. Chairman, rural banks are capable of meeting the SDGs of this time. I believe that as stakeholders, we can make invaluable contributions as members of the rural banking fraternity and recommit ourselves to improving the level of development in this all-important sector of our economy. I wish you well.